Hello and welcome, everybody. It's half past noon here in the Iranian capital, Tehran. We're going to interrupt the normal course of programming as we go live to the Iranian capital, Tehran, as Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif and visiting French Foreign Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault are addressing a joint press conference. Let's listen in.
Holding the first session of the Joint Commission. I would also like to offer congratulations on the auspicious 10-day dawn ceremonies to fellow Iranian countrymen, concurrently with the anniversary of the late Imam's arrival from France. We're pleased to host our French guests. Now, after the visit by President Rouhani to France, there was a roadmap that was agreed on aimed at expansion of bilateral ties on various fronts. Well, today, after a lapse of a year, implementing this roadmap in various fields, well, we have reaped some positive results in the bilateral relations. The volume of the relations in the past 11 months in 2016, when we had the JCPOA signed, so the volume has reached 3 times as much as what we had in 2015. Now, today we have this possibility to expand and promote, to study different avenues for cooperation and relations. In the morning, we had a meeting with the private sector. Yeah, the driving force, actually, the comprehensive trade relations. That's what the private sector has been engaged. We have conducted negotiations in that sector, and this afternoon, the Joint Commission the sessions will talk about we've talked about various avenues for expansion of relations, also the grounds where we need further cooperation for the settlement of some banking operations and issues, and further progress in investments and economic cooperation. Well, so far, the successes achieved, the contracts between Iran and France have been signed. A number of them have been implemented. So next month, we'll see the production, a joint production of cars, and the first one will be produced and get out of the production line. It will target the Iranian market and the regional markets. It's manufactured jointly by Iran and France. It's one of the first accomplishments that has both created jobs and brought technology, and the joint production that would be in the interest of both Iran and France, given the advantages that the Iranian market offers. Now, in the Airbus field, we have had cooperation, technical and scientific cooperation, and environmental cooperation. Also, in the building of airports, we have cooperation on rapid trains, and any other, lots of other avenues being cooperated on by Iran and France, in the advanced technology, and it's also nuclear field. These are the areas we have been cooperating bilateral, and today some agreements we have made between myself and the respective foreign minister within the decisions of the Joint Commission. We have signed some agreements, and also there have been some agreements in the private sectors of both countries. In the morning session, in the Chamber of Commerce of Iran's mining and agriculture ministry, also cooperation regarding money laundering. There was an agreement signed between our respective colleagues. So grounds of cooperation are substantial for cooperation between Iran and France. Politically speaking, there have been some positive negotiations and exchange of views that were made. The full implementation of the JCPOA by all the sides was what was emphasized by Iran and France, and the emphasis that both sides place on the need for sticking to the content stipulations of the JCPOA. Also, in the field of campaigning against terrorism, campaigning against narcotic drugs, and some other cooperation, we have had exchanged some views and negotiations regarding the campaign against extremism and terrorism, and restoring peace and stability to this sensitive region in the working lunch. Hopefully we'll continue working on those issues too. So one more time, I would like to welcome the distinguished French Foreign Minister and the accompanying entourage. Hopefully the negotiations today will be in line with the interests of both nations and states, and also in line with cementing peace, security, and stability in this strategic and sensitive region. Hopefully we'll get fruitful results. And I would like to thank you again.
D'abord, avant de commencer, je voudrais renouveler au
But I would also like to offer condolences to the people and government of Iran regarding what happened on January 19th. There were almost 20 people who got killed, and it brought a lot of sorrow to the Iranian people. So I would like to use the opportunity and offer condolences to the bereaved families of that incident. And I should say that I'm really thankful and appreciate the warm hospitality and the reception in Tehran. Especially, I would like to thank Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, distinguished Iranian Foreign Minister. Well, of course, to me, this has been a great meeting, especially because this is after the meeting of well, they decided, the two presidents, that they want to have further dynamism and activity in the bilateral relations. So the realization, this is what we're doing in line with the realization of this wish. So within that framework, this morning, we had we chaired the Joint Economic Commission of both countries, and this is a crystallization of this dynamism and vibrant activity in our relations. So in the morning, in the presence of we had this economic forum represented by the private sector. These are all signs that the JCPOA that was signed July 14th. You know, July 14th is a National Day of France, so that day is really important to us, and it's important to you both because of the JCPOA. So this is, you know, this coincidence. These two occasions coincide. So there's this historic agreement, talking about the JCPOA for Iran, also for the people of France, and actually JCPOA is for the entire humanity. It also tells and proves to the people without hope, with the hopeless, that the diplomacy does work, and it bears results, so we should not ignore it. And we should not just change our minds. So to our Iranian friends, I've told them that France is really and highly interested to see JCPOA is implemented, and it has done its own share within the JCPOA. So with fair transparency, France is ready to go ahead with the rest of the implementation of the JCPOA and to see it fully realized. I'm so pleased that within this framework we are active and doing our cooperation. Hopefully this will go on, and we could find some ways so we could confront and tackle the issues that may endanger the agreement and somehow and may call for negotiation. So this is what France thinks and what France's stance, and this is a new chapter in Iran and French relations. It has just started. So Iran and France both jointly can work in regional issues and also global issues. In the working lunch, we'll be discussing these issues. There's some convergence, and we share certain views, and the quality of relations will help us actually raise all these issues where we see eye to eye. And then there are also human rights issues that are important. We'll also mention that. We have mentioned that. And what we see, as the Foreign Minister mentioned, that no one is safe and immune from terrorism. So it's incumbent on everyone to do something and to work against this global threat. And we need to find some responses, to find some solutions regarding the root causes of terrorism and the crisis. So that is why France thinks that the region requires, it's a strategic requirement for peace, for stability, and for development and the welfare of the people and well-being. So it is time that great powers and the key players in the region find a certain formula to do something in Syria, Yemen, Iraq, and tackle the problems there. We have no military solution to those conflicts in the region, so the only solution is through reconciliation and peace. It will allow all the countries to be able to maintain their territorial integrity and sovereignty by observing and respecting the variegated, ethnic fabric. Mr. Rouhani was in France in January 2016. Well, we had so many agreements that were made and signed, and today many of them have been fulfilled thanks to the dynamism and activities of the Iranian and French companies, and also the support that they have received by the statesmen from both sides. So our commerce has more than 200% increased, and we have had some joint projects in Iran and joint ventures. They have generated jobs in Iran, like car manufacturers. Recently, they have 50%. They're producing 50% of the cars in Iran. And Airbus, on the 12th of January, the first one of the aircraft that was delivered to Iran, from hundreds of to be delivered. Also, Vinci company to modernize the Mashhad and Isfahan airports has signed some contracts, and it's already been signed, and hopefully it will be implemented. Iran Air also is going to buy 40 aircraft. So these are some strong, robust projects, and these are just the beginning of a longer cooperation and a variety of host of issues and avenues that the joint the Economic Commission that we both jointly chaired, and the ones to see all of these cemented, wants further dynamism and further strides, because it's in the interest of both countries. And in fact, these are the promises of the Vienna negotiations that are being realized these days in terms of research, in terms of higher education, also arts, culture. We have made numerous agreements in our universities, our academic and research centers, and this will allow us to have more universities and exchange further universities and researchers. And France will facilitate the process. In the morning I said, and now I should reiterate again, that the visa issuance to all the Iranians who will be, we will facilitate it, and that we aim to, as soon as possible, double the number of visas that we issue for Iranian tourists who want to visit France, because it's important for our societies, for communities to get to know each other better, more closely, and they could play their own role in the new chapter of relations that has started, in the age-old relations that have existed between the two cultures and the two states. We have so many common points, and there are so many things that we share, and we can continue to share. So this is what we want to do, and we plan to do, in order to partake of all these aspects, and for further friendship between our two nations. And we could also play our share in restoring peace and well-being of the people. And this is the mindset we have, and that's the basis of our negotiation. I'm so pleased to be here.
Bonjour messieurs. Une question pour vous, Monsieur Hérault, d'abord. C'est la deuxième fois.
Well, there's a new French minister who is visiting Iran this year. This is the second time two foreign ministers are visiting Iran this year from France. the banking problems still exist, but you are here. I got a question for respected Iranian foreign minister. They say that there's a nuclear experiment, that the White House has condemned it, and the Security Council is going to convene. Do you approve that we have done this missile experiment? Thank you. Regarding French banks, I should say, that we need to be positive, to think positively. There have some progress that have been made, and we need to make further progress. With big banks, we have spoken to some of them, and so they stay away, hopefully. We're working on it. We're trying to solve the problem. And of course, the banks stay away from this because in the past, there have been some sanctions, some penalties from the U.S., not only for working with Iran, but for some other reasons. They're so cautious, they're maybe overcautious now. That the U.S. legislation calls for, they go beyond their borders and they act outside of the borders. And in the past, this has caused a report. There was this. We did something in French Parliament. We talked to the Germans also. We shared some viewpoints so that we could make some European decisions regarding this, because it's really. But there were some heavy penalties for us, and we made great losses. I mean, the way the U.S. acts. So some smaller banks have come and they are working with companies and corporations. So some of the projects have been able to get out of the deadlock and to get going. As I said, France again is mobilizing some guarantees and for exports, and the French exporters today are using some new possibilities, and things have been facilitated. France is among the first countries that is doing this, and we were not able to do these. There was a ban, but we are embarking on them now. We are exchanging things with Iran so that we could have some. Also, there's this correction and reform regarding the financial system, so it could bring it further compatibility with some standard international standards. That's what Iran needs to do. So we need to be careful and go the right way. We need to be patient, and we need to stay positive. For investment projects in Iran, we need to wait so that but the rhythm and the pace of the things is going on. I trust us that things are going on, and I'm optimistic. And my friend Dr. Zarif, I told him that you can count on the French government, because we'll tap into all our possibilities in order to convince our banks that the Central Bank of Iran and that the French Opposite Number, they're doing certain things and working on it so that things could be facilitated. We'll hopefully get positive results. Michel Sapin also, who is the Minister of Finance of France, in March will be visiting Iran, and I think that there will be some improvements in that area after his visit. Regarding the information on a missile test by Iran, we are studying these reports, but France several times expressed concern about the continuation of missile experiments by Iran. We find this is in contravention of the spirit of the UN resolution. And it also contravenes the spirit of trust and the Vienna Convention and the agreement. So I sincerely announce this to our Iranian friends, and I'm repeating it, that should be within the framework of mutual cooperation. For the IAEA and the countries and parts of the parties to the JCPOA, they have announced that Iran has adhered to all of its commitments within the JCPOA, and Iran has fully made good on its commitments within the JCPOA. Unfortunately, the other parties to the agreement, especially the United States of America, the same way we have been committed to the JCPOA, we have not seen the U.S. to be as committed. In order to implement the decisions and the arrangement stipulations within the JCPOA, we have always tried. Well, so far we have been able, to a large extent, despite all the obstructionism by the U.S., that one of them, which has been, all of these extraterritorial laws and regulations that are part of the U.S., well, we have managed to implement most of the stipulations of JCPOA, but unfortunately, the U.S. actions still hinder the full implementation. On the other hand, as all the parties to the JCPOA who are present and they have announced, the issue of missiles is not part of the JCPOA. This is what the French government has officially announced, and also the United States government. The previous government of the United States, who was present in the JCPOA, has officially announced that the issue of missiles is not included in the JCPOA and has nothing to do with it whatsoever. Now, in Resolution 2231, there's a clause about the ballistic missiles. The Islamic Republic of Iran, at the time of the ratification of the Resolution 2231, has announced its stance based on Resolution 2231. Its mention has been referred to ballistic missiles that could have the possibility of they're nuclear capable, actually. Will we announce then that none of the ballistic missiles of the Islamic Republic of Iran are designed for nuclear purposes and carry nuclear warheads? They're only missiles to carry conventional the warheads within the legitimate defense of the Islamic Republic, and they fall outside of the Resolution 2231. That's the stance that we stick to. The Islamic Republic of Iran, as a country that has paid the highest price regarding international terrorism, aggression, we have paid the highest price. The 8 years of Iraq's invasion against the Islamic Republic of Iran, unfortunately, this is a very dark precedent regarding the way the international community treated Iran. And that is why the Iranian people, when it comes to self-defense, they will never make it subject to permission from other sides. We have always announced that we will never make use of our weapons against others except in our own defense. And this is what we have shown in the past 250 years. Iran has never launched any wars, has never started any wars, but when it came under invasion by foreigners, it has always defended its territorial integrity and sovereignty bravely and by relying on the great Iranian nation. So we hope that the issue of Iran's defense programs that fall outside of the Resolution 2231 and also outside of the realm of the JCPOA, hopefully they will not serve as a pretext for some political games and politicking that the new U.S. administration may use. Unfortunately, they have had this dark record of, just this ban on not letting people who have the legal visa of that country, they're not allowed to go in. Unfortunately, this is terrible internationally. Hopefully, they will not misuse of this for creating a new tension. From ISNA, reporter, as a last question. Greetings. Distinguished French Foreign Minister, I have a question for the French Foreign Minister regarding the role of France in the region, considering the fact that in the not so long past, we saw that France has been playing a role in peace and stability. But we have been also witnessed that in recent years, this role has kind of diminished and faded away. Also, the positive role playing, France has kind of turned to some neutral stances. So the other question is, after the coming to office of the new U.S. administration, we see that some comments are being made by President Trump and some of the people in his inner circle regarding the implementation of the JCPOA. They have made some, contradictory comments, and that they contradict the spirit of the JCPOA. Well, the JCPOA stresses that all the sides and parties to the agreement, when it comes to implementation of the JCPOA, they need to be forthcoming and try their best. For the people of Iran, it's really important to know what France's stance is regarding Mr. Trump's comments. Thank you. Well, our sense is clear. I've already replied to this question. Well, last night and this morning in the Economic Forum, and just a few minutes ago, I expressed France's willingness in the Vienna Agreement, and I reiterated that any kind of initiative that would be in contravention of the spirit of the agreement, we stand opposed to it, especially if we're going to have renegotiations. We just find it out of the question. So as you said, Mr. Trump, during his the election campaign, and also the statement that he made after he went to the White House, we have observed everything that he is, and we have some concerns, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen. We're very cautious, and we are vigilant to see with the German foreign minister. I had some negotiations, and with Mr. Stadtmeier, and Mr. Fabius, they also were present in the Iran talks. But without waiting to see what the U.S. stances will be, I should tell you that unilateral stances under the pretext of fighting terrorism or providing security in Iran by just issuing that visa ban order. We think that this is a really worrying and untimely and inappropriate order. And so common sense dictates that you need to go back and then change your mind. So we're all concerned about the security of our own citizens, and border controls, but should be in place. And what France is doing, everybody is doing this. But we should know that we should take some measures that are not in contravention, that they should not hurt, they should not harm in any way the principles in which we all are interested within our international commitments regarding accepting asylum seekers. And also lack of discrimination. There shouldn't be any discrimination between citizens of certain nations. What has happened is really a flagrant discrimination against countries. And we want principles to be respected. And we need to do it in the right way and respectfully. So we should keep away from harming international relations in any way and to create unnecessary, really an untimely tension. This is what the French foreign policy line, and we will defend this, and we're not alone. There are numerous countries that are also on the board and share the same stance, and France, with other European Union members, started consultations, and we share certain views.
Well, live from the Iranian capital, Tehran, Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif and visiting French Foreign Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault were addressing a joint press conference. Let's go over some of the points that were just made. The Iranian Foreign Minister Mr. Zarif opened the proceedings stating that the two countries are to boost cooperation in fields of science, environment, and transportation, and that Iran and France both emphasize on the full implementation of the provisions of the JCPOA by all parties. IAEA and JCPOA signatories have admitted to Iran's compliance with the accord, and in a continuation, Mr. Zarif said that the U.S. has not been committed to implementing the JCPOA. Also, the issue of Iran's missile program was mentioned as Foreign Minister Zarif said Iran's missile program is not related to the JCPOA, and Western countries have accepted this, and that none of Iran's missiles are designed to carry nuclear payloads and are intended for the rightful defense of the country. Also, in relation to that, he added that Iranians will not wait for other countries' permission to defend themselves. French Foreign Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault opened his statements offering condolences for the Plasco building tragedy. He also said that Iran and France can cooperate on all regional and global issues, and that fighting terrorism is a duty for all countries, and the root causes of it must be addressed. He also added that the two countries will boost educational relations as well, and that Paris wants to double the number of Iranian tourists to France. Also, on the issue of foreign banks, he said that some of these foreign banks are still cautious about cooperation with Iran, and that we're seeing smaller banks are already taking part in Iranian projects. He also expressed his concern about the continuation of Iran missile tests, which was addressed comprehensively by the Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif, and on the issue of the travel ban issued by U.S. President Donald Trump. Both foreign ministers slammed the issue. The French foreign minister said that fighting terrorism is not a good excuse for taking unilateral measures by any country. So that's it with the latest from the joint press conference taking place in the Iranian capital, Tehran.